I know a girl, she puts the color inside of my world, but she's just like a maze where all of the walls...
Hey everyone, welcome to my weekly messages. I'm Jelaila Starr. Today the topic is releasing our mothers, healing ourselves. This message is dedicated to all of those of you out there who are struggling with depression and dysfunctional situations that create a lot of pain in your life, whether it's a marriage or relationships with your kids or friends or siblings. And we can trace back these challenges to our childhood, and we discover that in doing so that one of our challenges is our anger and our resentment or frustration toward the person who played the role of mother for us. The mother role in its perfection is like the June cleaver, where we receive lots of love and kisses and hugs, and our mothers are there to bandage our boo-boos, and when they look into our eyes, they have a way of making us feel like we are the most important person in the world. But if you're like many people, you didn't end up with a June cleaver kind of mom. You ended up with something less. So as a result, we end up kind of emotionally scarred because we didn't get the nurturing, we didn't get that healthy, reflection back, and a role model that would help us learn to really nurture ourselves. And until we can nurture ourselves, we really don't know how to receive properly. So we're left growing up and ending up in relationships where we give, and receive very little. And we end up feeling frustrated and feeling like that we were taken advantage of, and that other people are just selfish. So that creates walls to intimacy. It creates walls to really trusting people. And then we find ourselves feeling isolated and alone. So it's not a way to go into adulthood. It's certainly not a way to live our lives and end our lives. So I wanted to share this story with you. Hopefully, it will help in your healing. So, talking about Lori again, she came here for a retreat back in December, and we, during the time together, she learned some great insights. She got some great insights into her situation with her partner and with her family. And she left with some really good tools to be able to continue the work and tackle specific issues. So I hadn't heard from her really until just recently, when she called me out of the blue and says, "I've had a breakthrough, but I don't know what to do next." And her breakthrough was that she discovered, in going back into her childhood, that the behaviors that she felt were so negative in her mother, and she had a very difficult relationship with her mom, she also had acquired. And that was mind-blowing. That was devastating, because the last thing she wanted to be was like her mom. And she's like, "I'm just like my mom." So what do? Well, I taught her about taking people through the formula and releasing them from blame, and that had really worked for her in other situations. But she goes, "There's like 10 different traits. How am I going to take my mom through all of these, through the formula and all these traits? That's daunting. That's overwhelming." So I was like, okay, don't sweat it. You don't have to do that. The key is to release your mom once you recognize that, these traits, and you recognize them in yourself. It's not to take your mom through the formula and all those traits. It's to look at the fear that caused her to behave in those ways, and then trace that fear back to the belief that spawned it. So I said, let's take each one of these things. So, for example, I had her take the one about how she was very narrow-minded and wouldn't let new ideas into her world because she didn't want it to upset her version of reality. Or the one about that she would, if she was controlling, and if she couldn't control, she would just isolate herself. Uh, and then the other one about feeling like she didn't have a right to ask for what she wanted. She didn't have a right to be happy because it might hurt somebody else, or they might say no. Or if they did give her what she wanted and they got hurt, she would be blamed. Or if it went bad, she would be blamed. So better yet, just don't even ask for what you want. And if you did by chance decide to ask for what you want, putting all that aside, then that meant that you were selfish and that you were wicked. And selfish is wicked. And if you're wicked, you can't get into to heaven, which meant you're going to go to hell. So her mom grew up very religious, and she raised Lori very religious. But even though Lori had gotten past that whole hell and heaven thing, she realized she was still struggling with the programming. So what was the belief behind all of that? Well, the belief was that she didn't have a right to exist. She was worthless. So for her to be born, she had absolutely no purpose for being, no worth. In other words, if you're here, you got to earn it, or else you need to leave because you're useless, you're worthless. So you have to earn your right to take up space on the planet by doing something of value. So that would be serving others. So you spend your whole life serving others. But you can't ask for anything for yourself. Whatever you get must come from other people without being prompted. They must give it to you. And then you can't receive it because that meant you would be selfish. So you're going to spend your whole life being frustrated, being used, feeling like nobody cares, and everybody else is selfish. And you will die feeling bitter and useless. So that's kind of how she grew up. And I said, that's what leads to depression. That's one of the things that leads to depression. It's like, why? Why? It's useless. If you believe that you don't have any worth, that you have to earn the worth, and you don't have a right to be happy, and if someone did try to make you happy, you can't receive it because you'd be wicked, what's the sense in living? So that leads to this sense of hopelessness, and hopelessness is at the core of depression. So the first step for her was to realize that her mother grew up feeling the same way she did. And that is why her mother behaved the way she did. Now that Lori could feel that hopelessness, that helplessness, because she had battled with it her whole life, and she saw that she had behaved the same way toward her husband, her son, and everyone else, then she now had empathy for her mom. I said, so this is the thing. You take your mom through the formula on all those things, and you release her from blame because you realize she was simply playing the role for you. That was what she agreed to. And furthermore, she died without ever knowing that you really loved her because you were so distant. So she was able to release her mom from blame. And she was able to have compassion and empathy for her mom because she understood the suffering because she had suffered in the same way. So that was a solution and that enabled her to begin to heal herself because she couldn't heal until she could release her mom from all the resentment. And then she could release that resentment from her body and that anger from her body. So she was able to do that. So that was a huge breakthrough. So for all of those of you out there who are struggling with the mother issue, I hope that if you had a mother who had the similar traits, that this would help you, and you found them in yourself, because that's part of the discovery process, then this will help you to move forward and reclaim joy in your life. All right, take care. Have a great week. Talk to you next week.
Continually change, and I've done all I can to stand on the steps with my heart in my hand.